tell you what, I'm gonna get an ear.
With some technical, made it go for that.
All right, let's come to order. The pledge tonight will be led by Ms. Blair.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, please join in a moment of silence. Thank you. I made a mistake and started without Miss Michaels. That was a bad mistake. Sorry about that, Joyce.
Start over.
We might have to. We don't, wait a minute. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion's adopted. Consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Or questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion's adopted. Number 6.
Mr. Odom's gonna do a spotlight and talk about Tennessee Value Added, which all you guys have heard of so many times over the years. And also, to conclude that spotlight will be a kind of a comparison of how we performed against other systems. We don't think it in any way circumvents the embargoed report card, which comes out tomorrow, somewhere around 11 o'clock. But the state has done everything they can to prepare parents and school boards and communities that school systems aren't going to have the grades that they had last year because there's more rigor added to the test. The mechanism used to score tests has changed a little bit, so we still have some good news to report, and I think you'll see that in a minute or two. Mr. Odom.
One of the things that we want to do tonight, I wanted you to get a chance to see what we as a district and what principals and all in our school gets to look at. The tools for an educator now are so different than they were just a few years ago. Projection information to let us know students' performance. So there's a little video training clip that I'm going to show you in just a moment. It's less than 5 minutes long, but it'll explain to you what we're looking at, and if you have follow-up questions. But beginning with this, which is a training tool used by the state, and so I thought you might find this interesting. This is actually, we're not going to go through this, but this is where the state was talking about how they did the concordance for the new test with the old test and all. But on page 18 of that concordance, you see something there that's very interesting. They have on this particular slide, Memphis City and Rutherford County submitted files with current school enrollments to SAS to create these reports. So they gave us some credit for it. We actually sent it in August. Mr. Gill encourages us to be involved, and he kind of likes data like I do. So we talked to the SAS people about trying to get projection information early this year, as early as we could. So we volunteered to do this and work with Mr. Mays. It was difficult this year. It was in early August because we were opening 2 new middle schools, and so students were in very different places. So we worked hard to get that in. But anyway, credit to Rutherford County Schools, I guess, and Memphis City for kind of helping the rest of the state get kicked off into this and started. I'm going to go in now to the TVAS site, and this thing times out, so I couldn't go ahead and sign in. It will not let you sit very long without going into it. So the video that I'm going to show you, see, I just messed up, didn't I? What I'm going to show you tonight is the System AYP dashboard, and this this is, again, a training video that lets you see what our principals see, what we can see as a district level. Now, when you see a count on this AYP dashboard for how many students in an area, it'll not be on this one tonight in their training video, but we can click on that and see the names of the students that are in that particular category. So I wanted to tell you that on the front end. So let's take a look at this again. It's a little less than 5 minutes.
In this module, you will learn about the System AYP dashboard. This dashboard provides the school system with an important summary of students' chances for success on upcoming AYP academic indicators. New proficiency standards were established for TCAP and end-of-course tests with the 2010 test administration. These new standards are much higher than before, which will make it more challenging for students to score in the proficient range. The System AYP dashboard is a useful tool to help system-level practitioners assess the needs of students throughout the school system, plan to provide necessary academic interventions and supports, and allocate resources to ensure that all students have appropriate opportunities for progress. You'll find the System AYP dashboard listed under the Reports tab in the section labeled Future AYP Performance. This report summarizes students' chances for success on TCAP Math and Reading Language Arts and the end-of-course tests for Algebra 1 and English 2. To be included in the report, students must be listed as enrolled at the schools in this school system in the current year, according to the most recent submission of enrollment data for TVOS. The tables and pie charts for TCAP Math and Reading Language Arts include students in grades 4 through 8. The tables and pie charts for end-of-course Algebra 1 and English 2 include only students currently enrolled in grades 9 and 10. In each table and pie chart, students are grouped by their probabilities of scoring proficient. First, let's look at the table for TCAP Math. The first row is labeled Advanced. This group includes students enrolled in grades 4 through 8 in the current school year who have at least a 70.5% chance of scoring proficient on the TCAP Math test at the end of this year. There are 1,139 students in this group, which equates to 34% of the students. This row is represented by the green slice in the pie chart below. The second row is labeled Accelerate 2. This group includes students in grades 4 through 8, whose chances of scoring at least proficient fall between 50.5% and 70.5%. These students may be at risk for falling short of the proficient range, especially if they miss school often or otherwise become disengaged from learning. These students are represented by the yellow slice in the pie chart. The third row is labeled Accelerate 1. This group includes students in grades 4 through 8 who have less than a 50.5% chance of scoring proficient. These at-risk students should be engaging in targeted academic interventions throughout the school year. This row is represented by the red slice in the pie chart. The last row includes students in the system who appear in the TVOS reporting, but who had insufficient data to generate an achievement probability. This row is represented by the white slice in the pie chart. The tables and pie charts for end-of-course Algebra 1 and English 2 group students in the same way. You'll notice that the tables and pie charts for these tests include an additional row and corresponding pie slice. This row includes students enrolled in the system who have already tested at or above proficiency in the subject. These students are represented by the blue slice in the pie chart. The System AYP dashboard provides an overall view of how prepared students in the system are to succeed on upcoming TCAP and end-of-course tests. In this example, it's clear that a large percentage of the students in grades 4 through 8 are at risk for not meeting proficiency on the TCAP tests for Math and Reading Language Arts. It's also evident that a large percentage of the system's 9th and 10th graders are at risk for falling short of the proficient range on the upcoming end-of-course tests for Algebra 1 and English 2. Administrators at the system level will want to use this report to ensure that supports and interventions are available for students throughout the school system. For more detailed information about the AYP dashboards, click Help at the top of the screen.
What our administrators, there's one of these also for the school level. So when an administrator opens a dashboard for their school, it will be their students. They can click on the names. The value of this is very early on in the school year, you have information about students who are coming to you or are in your school that are sometimes we call coin toss students, very close to being proficient or not proficient. Well, it's very important that you provide that additional time and support for those students so that you can ensure that they will be proficient. So we use this early on to try to place the students in those intervention programs, be it double dosing, be it additional time with sometimes it's resource students. And when you click on one of those numbers, when you get your list of student names, it gives you information about that student, like is this a special education student, is this an ELL student, or other things that would demographically identify that student so that you could see if that program is what's best for them. And then you can sort them in a number of ways like that. But it's, instead of kind of guessing or going back and doing it by hand, now we've got a click away that we can identify students that are special needs. Now, on the other hand, you saw the advanced ones. Now, if you're going to have good value-added score, that's your best and brightest student. You, at the same time, you're working with these that may need additional interventions. You better be paying attention to provide new learning for those students so that you can increase your value-added scores. So it works for both students in both areas. Questions about this or something?
Is this so this function is new in TVAS, is that right?
It's about a year old. It came out around this time or late last year. But it's not, they're trying to get to the place, Dr. Burns, where they can update this all year long. They're having trouble doing it coming out of STAR into the EIS, Education Information System, because students move all year long. So theoretically, if we can get to a place where the state could take every week or every 2 weeks and repopulate again, because students have the same number even if they move to another school in your district or something, then when a teacher clicked on this dashboard or looked at it, then it would be repopulated with the latest that the students were in. So we're hoping they can get to the place they do that.
So have we been using it this year, this school year?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yes. Well, you were one of the first in the state. They offered to do this for us. And Mr. Gill signed a contract for $0. We had to do a contract to do that because we were helping them develop that. We actually asked the TVAS people this summer to come and meet with our principals as part of our administrators training last summer, was interpreting and using this information.
So the projection is based on last year's test performance by the students primarily, or?
TVAS projections, for instance, your math projection does not just come from your prior history in math. And again, I don't know the intricacies of it. That's probably part of their copyright or patent. But they will take some of your reading ability and some of your other ability in courses before they make your math projection. Now, you hope those projections turn out incorrect, because you hope when you look at, and those red bars are not far off what they're saying all across the state. You know, I mean, and that just was a supposition school, not any one particular there. But that's not far off. You hope that your interventions that you're doing during the year make that not the case, that you wind up with many more students, you know, actually proficient than what is projected at the start of the year, because that's kind of your worst case scenario projection. If you don't do anything special for these students, this is what you're likely to see.
It'd be interesting to compare what actually happens to what their projections are, though, won't it?
We did do some of that last year, especially looking at Holloway and some. Holloway scored much better than they did, but that's kind of been a history of Holloway. That we've taken some very at-risk students, and they scored better, I mean, than they are. But again, this kind of information, you know that we have low pupil-teacher ratio there, you know, and they do all the extra interventions and things for them. And so your goal is to change that where that's not correct. you know.
You know, one of the things, Don, and Mr. Odom, you hit on, you know, you get this information and you kind of analyze it. You talk about interventions, remedial, enrichment, you talk about double dosing, it's finding times. It's one of the hardest things the principals have had, to find time to do interventions and remediation for kids that need it. Because like you say, those guys, what kills your value added all the time are that upper quartile or quintile that you got to stretch on out there to bring home those good grades. And we talked the other day about, we've got 1 or 2 schools that are doing particularly well in special ed. It's because they're double dosing, and in most cases with title money, which goes back to, I hate to bring this back up, but if we had more money to put more people in schools to double dose those kids that are struggling and help them out, it would make such a difference.
Correct.
Grant?
How many other systems are online with this?
Anybody's a public school system in Tennessee. Now, they're telling me that they have not been able to update since early August, that they've got some systems that can't get the data into them. But, I mean, we were able to do it very early on in August and working very hard to do that, but it's
What
worth your
percentage?
time to do it.
What percentage of the systems, have you heard any
They'll
figures
not-
at all?
They'll not tell us.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how many. But the state doesn't want to do but one dump at a time. The way the system's set up, you know, you can't just take a few schools and do it. They need to turn the whole EIS database over to SAS to do that.
Aaron?
It's certainly apparent how moving a student from non-proficient to proficient, how that would affect things. But tell me again, how does this value added on the upper end when you're increasing those students' performance, how does that affect the scoring?
Value added, when you see the report card tomorrow, what you're going to see, there are achievement scores and there are value added scores. There'll be, in elementary schools, there's grades, A, B, C, D grades. They're lower this year all across the state. State average and all is lower. But achievement is a lot of innate ability. In other words, how the students come to you. Value added is taking that student's normal curve equivalent, a percentile score, and at the end of that year, if that student was at the 40th percentile, and at the end of that year in testing, that student is now at the 42nd percentile relative to everyone else in the state, you've added value to that student. And that's in addition to the year's growth for a year's time.
Okay.
So your goal is to make that student higher relative to where they were. So each student, one at a time, that's what you're doing. And you'll see some of that on that report card and see how that works. So, and a high student might be 85 or 90 percentile. You know,
It's hard, it's more difficult to add value.
it's harder. It's based on some test questions too, and there's, like any standardized test, there's some out there you're not supposed to get, so that you don't have the ceiling effect, they call it. And so there's some of those, and you hope in those brighter students, if you do some things and do the new learning and provide opportunities, that they're going to get some of those ceiling type questions. That's your goal.
Donald?
Do we have intervention programs that pinpoint certain grades, or is it a kind of a blanket type program?
Middle grades, and we had some of these when you were middle grade principals, a double dose in math, I think a double dose in reading, right? So in our middle schools, you've paid for that. You have 10 Title I schools that have additional personnel. We have 5 schools that are in our response to intervention, those pilot schools. We just haven't had the money to add to it. So you've got roughly 10 more elementary schools that really do not have extra resources. And that shows up. I mean,
It's good, well answered, and also that's one of the focuses of the PLCs, and so that teachers collaborate together to come up with interventions that they know will work, and enrichment opportunities as well. So that's the other resource we have, but like you say, we're limited by funding.
wouldn't you have liked to have had this instead of that long notepad when you were writing names down? It's amazing. Education's finally gotten where the business world's been for a while.
Okay. I think that, anything else on that? I think there's one more, right, Harry?
Yes,
One
sir.
more item.
The report card will come out tomorrow. We'll do okay. But none of the data means anything unless you have some comparison. A piece of data sitting by itself doesn't mean very much. This has to be, I've gone in, looked at the report card, and took the elementary and middle proficient advanced scores, took some high school, again, the EOC, ACT, writing, and took a look at this and to see how does Rutherford County compare. Because when you look at the scores, you're going to see some lower scores tomorrow. But if you look at this, I've taken all the districts around us. I've taken the 5 school systems that are larger than us, and they're included in this. I don't know, there's 18 or 19 districts there. We're at the bottom. If that school scored lower than we did, it's in yellow. And over on the right-hand side, we looked at economically disadvantaged as percent of free and reduced, limited English proficient. That's a huge factor now. And the last column is the dollars spent. You're going to find that Rutherford County is spending a little over $1,000 per student less than the state average when you start looking at this. So in a comparative, Williamson County, as you can see there, scored higher than we did in most of it. They have 11.9% free reduced. There is a connection.
This is achievement data.
This
right?
is achievement data. This is proficiency achievement data, proficient and advanced, is what that is. So when you look at that tomorrow and you say, oh, we're lower than we were last year, again, maybe this will give you a relative look at how we're stacking up. Not happy with it, and I'm never happy being lower, but again, they're saying Tennessee may now have the second most difficult test in the nation. All of your math, there's no more of this multiply these 10 problems. Every problem is embedded in some kind of what we used to call statement problem or word problem. Student has to analyze that, pick out the relative information, and then perform whatever operation it calls for. Again, lots of geometry and algebra down in the middle grades. I worked at one K-5 school this week and was showing them how much geometry was in their 5th grade. The second largest number of questions on the 5th grade math test was for geometry and measurement. And we're talking about parallel lines cut by transversals and things like that. Things that I saw in high school in 5th grade. Expectation. So very, very different.
Well, that's a good result. I mean,
Well, you know, when we first saw it, and we just saw ours, it was sad day in Mudville, as you say, you know. But again, you feel a little better.
have you done that for value added? This sort of analysis?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not. Again, my guess is that when the state releases the report card, the value added should come where we can see rankings across the state.
Yeah.
The only ranking we could see up until now is just within our own system, like your 10 high schools could be ranked against each other. But we'll get the ranking, which I usually do when I do the report card report for
Right.
you.
Yeah.
But I haven't been able to see those at all because they're locked up under TVAS site.
Questions for Don or Harry on this?
It's amazing what some systems spend. Somebody like Alcoa spends like $11,000 and some $4,000 more than we do.
Well, Oak Ridge spent
Per
almost
student.
12,000 at Oak
Oh,
Ridge,
it's huge.
student.
All right, well,
Good
thanks
job,
for that,
Mr.
and we
Owens.
look
Thank
forward
you,
to
sir.
seeing the full results tomorrow. I believe we have any visitors, so we're ready for number 8.
8, corrections of minutes from September the 30th, 2010 board meeting. The minutes from the board meeting of September the 30th, 2010 incorrectly referenced all board members as voting in favor of the motion approving the contract for buses 32 and 33 being transferred from Thurman Williams to Dan Hartley. Mr. Donald Jernigan had actually abstained from the vote, and recommendation is to approve the correction of the board minutes from September the 30th, 2010 meeting to reflect that Mr. Donald Jernigan abstained from the vote on the motion to approve the contracts for buses 32 and 33 being transferred from Thurman Williams to Dan Hartley.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion's adopted. Number 9.
Facilities, a chiller repair, rebuild at Blackman High School. McQuay International has submitted a quote for work on one of the two main chillers at Blackman High School. The chiller is a McQuay brand and has performed flawlessly. Hey, Don, could you turn the lights on or somebody, please, Amy? Thank you. Has performed flawlessly for 11 years with only routine maintenance from McQuay International. The total cost of the repair rebuild is $41,268. Rutherford County Schools Engineering and Construction Department believes strongly that it is in the best interest of the school board to continue to have McQuay International maintain and repair the chiller, and we are recommending that we approve the repair rebuild of the McQuay chiller at Blackman High School by McQuay International at a cost of $41,268. Funds for this project will come from the maintenance budget.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion's adopted. Number 10.
Calendar Committee has submitted a draft recommendation for the 2012-2013 instructional school year. The draft calendar is being presented with a recommended change that one of the teacher workdays be labeled as an administrative day in both the 2011-2012 and the 2012-2013 instructional calendars. Tennessee Code Annotated designates 5 discretionary days to be assigned by the board within the 200-day mandatory calendar. Rutherford County has historically assigned those 5 paid days as 1 parent conference, 1 holiday at Thanksgiving, and 3 teacher workdays. With the transition to increased curricular rigor and certified staff evaluation linked to student academic performance, there is a need for principals to have the option of additional faculty collaboration time to address No Child Left Behind, adequate yearly progress challenges, and state mandates specifically linked to individual schools. With the administrative day designation, principals will have the option of addressing school-level challenges through training, collaboration, or continuing additional workday for the staff. And we're recommending that you approve the 2012-2013 Instructional Calendar Committee recommendation with August the 9th, 2012 be designated as administrative day, and that the 2011-2012 instructional calendar be amended by designating August the 4th, 2011 as administrative day.
So moved.
Second.
So just as a reminder, we're approving for the first time the 2012-13 calendar and amending the 2011-12 calendar to make that change with the administrative.
That's your answer if you're interested.
Yeah, please, Don, if you'll step up. Last night I asked what was the status of Murfreesboro's calendar, and could we work to coordinate those?
When I spoke with them today, they have not finalized their 2011-12. They took a 3-week break, and they're going to poll their parents, is what they were saying, before they finalize 11 and 12, and see if parents preferred the 2 weeks or the 3 weeks. And so they have not worked on 12-13. So I did send them our 11-12. They asked me, they're trying to do PLCs and begin doing some of that also. So I sent them our calendar for next year that's showing the PLC, the 4 days and all for that, which wouldn't surprise me if they don't incorporate some of that in it also.
Okay, well, thank you for checking. I mean, I don't want to repeat myself, but I appreciate the city sort of moving more toward our calendar. That's, for those of us who have kids in both systems, it can be, nightmare is too strong, but it can be uncomfortable when one's going to school and one isn't.
Well, you know, the day you and I met with Dr. Gilbert, she said that she wanted to work closer
Right.
with us, and Ann McCraw has contacted their calendar person to see if we couldn't better coordinate what we do. So there's an effort on both parts to
There
do
is.
that.
Other discussion on this calendar? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion's adopted. 11.
In December, the board moved to reopen the 2010 pardon me, REA agreement with the intent of providing a 2% bonus to all certified employees and to provide a 2% bonus to all classified employees contingent on this agreement. The REA has ratified the agreement with the Board of Education to provide a 2% bonus to all certified employees. And we're recommending that you proceed with the payment of a 2% bonus to all certified and classified employees based on the agreement date of December the 16th, 2010.
So moved.
Second.
Terry?
Need to make a statement, Dr. Burns, that, for the record, that, my wife and son-in-law are both employees of Rutherford County School System, and, I'll be voting my conscience and be voting in the best interest of the Rutherford County School System.
All right, thank you. Other discussion? I just think we're all tickled to be able to do this. Appreciate the work you've done, Mr. Gilda, to arrange this. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion's adopted. Number 12 is our policy manual review. Anyone have anything you want to raise tonight? If not, you're certainly welcome to send those to Angel or myself as you come across issues, if you do. Number 13.
Appeal by Lenore Washington under complaint procedure. Lenore Washington, a teacher at Smyrna Primary, has filed an appeal from the decision of the school board attorney not finding any violation on the part of an administrator, principal, and the director of schools in regards to complaints she had filed arising from a disciplinary matter in which she was involved. Under the complaint procedure, Ms. Washington has a right to appeal the decision of the board, who is to decide whether to affirm or overturn the decision. If the board overturns the decision, the board may require corrective action, including granting the relief sought by the complainant. The board is to base its decision on the record which has been provided. Accordingly, the board has the following options. 1 is to affirm the decision. 2 is to overturn the decision, in which case the board may also require corrective action, which the board would need to specify.
I move to affirm the decision.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion's adopted. 14.
Insurance update. Rutherford County conducted a dependent eligibility audit from June through November. The cost to the county for the contracted service was $106,000. Results of the audit were provided at the December insurance meeting. 6,113 dependents were identified. 5,760 were verified, and 353 were ineligible. Of the 353 ineligible dependents, 193 were removed voluntarily. First-year savings resulting from the audit are expected to be $626,000. Dependents in the age category of 19 through 25 who may choose to come back on the plan after January the 1st total approximately 140. If all of the dependents come back to the plan, the potential savings is expected to be $400,000. In the future, all new employees with dependents on current employees adding dependents will be required to provide documentation to support their eligibility at the time of enrollment.
Anybody have any questions on that? We've talked about this on several occasions. All right, that brings us to general discussion. Anybody have something they want to discuss? Donald?
Well, not to discuss, but Mr. Gill, I would, since we were talking about cost per student, I would appreciate seeing the numbers of the total cost or the total money spent per student in the categories like federal aid, what title programs. I'd just like to
See a breakdown of that?
see a breakdown of that.
Okay. Sure.
The report card has the percentage and the report card has the percentages and an amount for each category. It's federal, local, state funding.
For our system?
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll be a year ago, but every school system in the state, you can see that breakdown. When I do the report for you later on, I'll show you 2000 compared to 2010, and you can see shifts in how our funding has done. So we'll give you that comparison too, probably later this month.
Also, Mr. Jernigan, if you remember, and we can do this again, I thought it was pretty interesting for the board to see, since we've got new board members. Mr. Sandvik did a breakdown of what percentage of the budget went, like, for example, in the instructional program for transportation, other areas, classified employees, et cetera. We'll get that together again, too.
That was helpful, and of course, the bottom line was, there's very little discretionary money in this budget. We spend more than $250 million, but most of it's on fixed costs.
Right.
Other questions or comments?
No comment. I ran into a fellow yesterday at the doctor's office of all places, and he wanted to commend the board and me and all of us down here for all the way we've kept up the older buildings in the county. And I went on to explain to the guy that Dr. Bob Bullen had proposed 3 or 4 years ago that we take 5 cents of that new BEP money and dedicate it to to renovations and taking care of the older buildings. So there's some folks out there that are noticing that's happening.
So it was nice to get a little positive feedback.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else? If not, we're adjourned.